baseball is back and loaded on the 40 acres. Men's basketball looks for a sweep against the Sooners, and we'll take you to the Erwin Center ahead of tonight's women's basketball clash against number 3 Baylor. Lots coming up on College Press Box. Good evening and welcome to this edition of College Press Box. I'm your host, Henry Corwin. Glad you could all be joining us on this beautiful Monday night. Finally, we've had some weather here in Austin that can start to remind us of the spring that is soon upon us. And with spring comes our national pastime. It was opening weekend at Dish Falk Field as Texas hosted the Raging Cajuns of Louisiana Lafayette, and the climax of the series came on Sunday afternoon. Here is how it went down. We're going to start you off in the bottom of the fifth with the game tied 1-1. Cody Clements with an RBI single. David Hamilton scores, give Texas a 2-1 lead. In the top of the ninth, Ridgway on for the save. A squeeze play by Louisiana is successful as they go up 3-2 with an RBI single in the bottom of the ninth by Mason Hibbler. Duke Ellis scores to tie the game at 3. And later on, in extra innings, Austin Todd with the huge walk-off home run to give Texas a 5-3 victory. What a shot by Austin Todd as the Texas Longhorns, the number 20 ranked Texas Longhorns, with a hard-fought win. 5-3 is your final. Joining me now is Jonathan Polasek. Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure.
Always glad to be here.
So let's just jump right into it. Junior Nolan Kingham took the mound on Friday and pitched 8 shutout innings while striking out a career-high 10 batters. On offense, it was Mason Hibbler who led the way with 3 hits, 2 stolen bases, and 2 runs scored. That was enough Friday as Texas won 3-0. On Sunday, both pitching staffs shined as Blair Henley got the start. He went 5 innings and gave up 1 run. But Texas was able to get that run back in the bottom of the 5th inning by way of an Austin Todd sac fly. Andy McGuire came on in relief and gave up 1 run, which was too much for Texas to overcome, as they would end up losing by a score of 2-1. Texas takes on Lamar in Austin Wednesday at 7:30. So Jonathan, thanks again for being here. Jonathan has great coverage from the Dish this weekend. Let's roll his package.
This game was supposed to be about Chase Sugart's first start, but with Texas down in the 9th, the narrative changed when Austin Todd came up to bat.
It was a high fastball in, and they've been throwing me in most of the game, and so I kind of was like, all right, I got to really get my hands in this one and just kind of see what I can do, just try to put the ball in play, and luckily it worked out.
How satisfying was it?
Oh, as soon as I hit it, I knew it was going. Because I was all over the guy, the lefty, and the ball that I hit to left center, I was like, God, I just missed that one. Throw me it again, and I'm going to crush it.
Despite a series of bunts in the top of the 9th inning by Louisiana Lafayette, Texas showed one major thing that could carry on through the rest of the season.
I'll tell you this, the resiliency of this team today was outstanding to get it going with Duke and get the big blows. The RBI by Hibbler, executed upon by David, and then Austin just a great swing. Didn't try to do too much. Try to be the same guy in the 9th that was been capable of being in the early part of the game. So just a great team win, really exciting.
That resiliency would be needed as sloppy defense and a series of timely hits, plus a squeeze play by the Raging Cajuns would allow Lafayette to momentarily take the lead. In the end, Texas was able to overcome all of that and celebrate their first series win of the season. For College Press Box, I'm Jonathan Polasek.
Well, Jonathan, thanks again. Thanks so much for being here. How are you doing on this fine day?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good, good. Well, let's jump right into it. One of the highlights of this weekend for the Longhorns was their dominant pitching, led by great performances by the likes of Nolan Kingham, Blair Henley, and Josh Sawyer, who combined to give up just 1 run in 15 2/3 innings. Jonathan, what are your expectations for the Longhorns pitching moving forward?
Well, honestly, I believe that Texas will have one of the either the number 1 or the number 2 starting staffs in the Big 12. They've got Nolan Kingham on Fridays, Chase Sugart on Saturdays, and Blair Henley on Sundays. I think that is a dynamite 1-2-3 weekend rotation. Nolan Kingham was a stud on Friday, giving up no runs, going 8 innings. And Chase Sugart, he went 6 2/3 innings out of transitioning from the bullpen. And Blair Henley went a little bit shorter than I thought he would have and would have liked, but he still looked good. Now, one of the concerns for Texas is their bullpen. You don't quite know exactly what it's going to look like. I mean, you had guys like Bryce Elder who stepped up out of the pen. He looked amazing. Josh Sawyer, he hasn't pitched in nearly 2 years. He came out of the pen and gave you 2 1/3 solid innings of no-run baseball. Texas is going to have a really, really good pitching staff. And if that bullpen comes together like Texas has seen in recent years, Texas is going to be a force in the Big 12.
Well, I certainly agree with you, Jonathan. It really is a major that Josh Sawyer, after being out for so long, was able to come in, take control, look calm on the mound, and really did his job. But now let's take a look at the other side of the field. The Longhorns have a new look lineup this season in which they are replacing some new they're replacing veterans from last season. New faces such as Mason Hibbler, DJ Przinsky, and the fully recovered Cody Clemens are new pieces in the Longhorns lineup. Jonathan, what kind of lineup do you think will work best for the Longhorns moving forward?
Well, I'm just going to say is that 1 through 4 in that lineup is going to be really key for the Longhorns. You have David Hamilton leading off, Mason Hibbler 2, Cody Clemens 3, and Austin Todd 4. I think the only thing that I would change is you swap Hamilton and Hibbler, because I think Hibbler, he can just really, really hit, and he has enough speed on the base paths to keep defenses honest. And I think David Hamilton, he'd be better suited for the number 2 spot just because he can move guys over really well. He can execute bunts at a high level, and then Cody Clemens and Austin Todd can bring those guys in. The bottom of the lineup, 5 through 9, they've been absolutely atrocious. Only having 3 hits in 3 games. That's absolutely unacceptable. If Texas doesn't get any production from those hitters this season, it's going to be a long, long spring for Texas, and they may not finish 3rd in the Big 12 like they were predicted to. They could easily finish in the back half of the Big 12.
Well, you're certainly right, Jonathan. You know, there's a reason they have 9 guys in the lineup. You can't rely on the first 4 to do the job day in, day out. You got to rely on those bottom guys in the order to really get the job done. Moving on, let's preview this LSU series coming up. The Longhorns will travel to LSU this coming weekend for a 3-game series against the Tigers. The last matchup between these two baseball powerhouses came last season, in which the Longhorns suffered an 8-1 loss to the team from Louisiana. Jonathan, very simple. What are the keys to this weekend series for the Longhorn men?
Well, for Texas, it's absolutely going to be about pitching. Now, LSU, they've historically been a dominant pitching team, and they may have struggled this past weekend, but I expect them to bounce back in a huge way against Texas. On the other side, it's Texas's pitching staff that's going to have to keep up. Nolan Kingham's going to have to be extended once again. He's going to have to be that stud that he's expected to be. Chase Sugar, I can see him going 7 innings plus. I mean, going 6 2/3 innings in his first start. Look for him to be extended. And then Blair Henley, he's got to give you more than 5 innings. Like I said, the bullpen, there's just too many unknowns right now. You don't know exactly what they're going to be, what they're going to look like. They looked pretty good this weekend, but I would rather Texas have their starters go as long as they can and take some of the pressure off that bullpen. And on the other side, the offense. The offense has to get timely hits. You need batters 1 through 4 to get on base and to be able to score, get all those RBIs, but the bottom of the order is key. If they can't get on base, then you can't have the likes of Hibbler, Clemens, and Todd bringing them around, bringing them in, scoring those runs, and getting Texas 5, 6, 7, 8 runs that they possibly could need against a very, very strong LSU team. LSU is ranked this year, as they usually are. Look for an exciting series this weekend.
Well, that's absolutely right, Jonathan. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. It was really a pleasure. Thank you for giving us some great insight. Maybe you should be the manager. You seem to really know what's up with this Longhorn men's baseball team. Coming up, we'll discuss the Longhorns men's basketball team, their matchup this weekend, and how it affects their chances in making it to the big dance come March. That and more coming up next on College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. I'm your host, Henry Corwin. Before the break, we discussed the baseball team for the Longhorns. This time, let's take a trip inside the drum. As we come down the home stretch of the college men's basketball season, the Longhorns have some crucial games on their schedule. Well, they're really all crucial at this point. The first step for the Longhorns was to take care of Baylor at home last Monday night. The wonderful Justin Morris has the story.
Bomba, Coleman, Osikowski, Roach. All 4 players had 15 or more points and still had a tough time pushing past Baylor. After a slow start, Bamba and Osikowski heated things up, placing the Longhorns just 3 points behind Baylor heading into the half.
We were focused because we knew they were going to be very competitive, and like Shaka always has them.
Keeping it close the second half, it was a Big 12 showcase at the Drum, coming down to the final seconds, pushing the contest into 2 overtimes. However, the Longhorns could not hold the lead and fell short by 1 point.
I mean, our guys are always listen, after the game, and they look you in the eye. But they're really, really upset, and some of those guys are really angry because it was a game that they put their egos aside and really came together in terms of attacking and hanging in there together and battling. But obviously we came up one stop short.
Double overtime was not enough for the Longhorns to overcome the Bears, as Texas increases their losing streak to 3.
Sometimes one game affects the next. I think as coaches and players, you do everything you can to make sure that doesn't happen.
The loss to the Bears did not make it any easier for Texas, as the Longhorns continued to compete for a seat in the NCAA tournament coming up next month.
When it doesn't go your way, you've got to immediately analyze why and where you need to get better. So that's what we'll do.
For College Press Box, I'm Justin Morris.
On Saturday, the Longhorns were in Norman to take on the Oklahoma Sooners, their Big 12 rival. Let's now go to the highlights. We're going to start you off in the second half with Texas up 3. Dylan Osikowski for the 3. He finished with 21 points on the game. Later, Christian Doolittle blocked by Mo Bamba. Bamba finished the game with 18 rebounds and 4 blocks. But later, Trae Young, he can shoot a little bit. He finished the game with 26 points on 3 threes. Here, after the Corwin miss, Dylan Osikowski with the rebound and putback. Texas up 9 with 5 minutes left. And later, Matt Coleman in the clutch finishes the layup. And to top the game off, Trae Young blocked by Corwin as Texas wins impressively 77-66 to move to 2-0 against the Oklahoma Sooners this season. With me now is Ross Labenske. Ross, thank you so much for being here. Let's get right into it. The Longhorns have done a great job in their 2 games this season against Oklahoma in containing the highly publicized NBA prospect Trae Young. In Young's first game in Texas, the Longhorns disrupted Young's 3-point shooting, holding him to just 2 of 14 from long range. This past Saturday, the Longhorns again did a great job on Young, limiting him to 7 of 21 from the field. He finished with 26 points, but that was not enough as the Longhorns won again. Ross, what specifically have the Longhorns done to be so successful in containing Mr. Young?
Well, Trae Young has proved at this point that he is a phenomenal basketball player. The whole country knows that. But with that, it's a double-edged sword because not only do opposing players but coaching staff alike know how talented he is. He said after the game, "I'm being guarded like no one else in the country." And it showed. Kerwin Roach Jr. tormented on defense the entire game, and Mo Bamba defended the paint from Young so he could not drive to the hoop. And he shot 4 for 27 in the last 3 games combined, and it continued against OU. So if they can continue to block high scores like they did Young, I think they'll be just fine.
It's absolutely right, Ross. I completely agree. But now, Ross, let's get to what the Longhorns fans should really be concerned about. The Longhorns have in no way secured a spot yet in the NCAA tournament, which will start up in just a little under a month. The Longhorns currently sit at 16-11 record, but more importantly, just 6-8 against teams in their own conference. With 4 games left on the schedule for the regular season, Ross, which of these games are must-win for the Longhorns?
I mean, if you ask me, all of them. They have 4 games left, just as you just said. OK State, K-State, Kansas, and West Virginia. They lost to OK State and K-State by 4 points combined. They were able to hang in there with Kansas, losing by 6 points, 92-86, but they got blown up by West Virginia, 86-51. So, that being said, if they could win that away game against Kansas in Allen Fieldhouse, they would absolutely get a spot in the NCAA tournament. But if they lose any less, if they win one game, then chances are you'll see the Longhorns in the NIT.
Well, absolutely, Ross. And I'm sure the Longhorn fans are all really hoping that they can secure those wins to get into this tournament, which is coming up in March. And the March Madness tournament is scheduled to kick off with the first four on Tuesday, March 13th. And the real star of the tournament that everyone is looking forward to will be on Thursday, March 15th, with the round of 64. In the event the Longhorns find us a way to get a spot in this tournament, Ross, what should we realistically expect from this team in the tournament? Or in other words, what is your advice for all of us like myself filling out a March Madness bracket?
If they can make it, I think they could win one. They have really showed flashes of greatness. When they're good, they have good defense, ball movement, they can shoot the three-pointer, but when they're bad, turnovers, sloppy D, and they're just really not really great at shooting either. So when they're bad, they're really bad. But it just depends which Texas team we'll see over these next few weeks, because that will truly define this team. But they've continued to surprise me, so I guess we'll see.
Well, Ross, thank you so much for joining us. I will definitely take your advice, but don't be offended if I make more than one bracket in case you're wrong. Coming up, we'll switch over to women's basketball with the latest on tonight's top 10 matchup. Welcome back to College Press Box. I'm your host, Henry Corwin. Happy to have you back on this Monday night. I hope you all had a great weekend. So let's jump right into the matchup of the night here in Austin. Number 6 Texas women's basketball is warming up to take on number 3 ranked Baylor as we speak at the Erwin Center. Our very own Thomas Fitch and Daniel Shee have our coverage from the Drum.
Thanks, Henry. We are live here at the Erwin Center. I'm Thomas Fitch. I'm joined with Daniel Shee ahead of tonight's huge matchup between the number 6 Texas Longhorns and the 3rd ranked Baylor Bears. In this big matchup, Daniel, who is your X factor for the Texas Longhorns?
It's got to be Joyner Holmes. When we talk about Audrey Karunkajo being out of the game due to injury a couple of games ago, Joyner Holmes just stepped in, trying to fill up that role, and especially defensive-wise. But Baylor's front court is so elite. I'm not sure how Joyner Holmes is going to confine them. If she plays really well, Texas really has a great shot.
Yeah, you talk about Baylor's great players. Obviously, Kalani Brown, Lauren Cox, Christy Wallace, just an incredible trio. It really feels like when you can stop maybe one of them or two of them, but the other one is going to do something. It's really hard to stop all 3 of them for one game, and that is one reason why Baylor has only lost one game and is on a 17-game win streak. Karen Aston had more to say about this at yesterday's media availability.
I think our whole team's going to have to help if you're talking about trying to guard those guys. They can really put the ball in the basket. And it's just not the 2 bigs. I mean, the guards are playing really, really well. Christy Wallace really hurt us in Waco, and she's playing as good a basketball as any guard in the country. So, I think that everybody focuses on those bigs, and they are really, really good, but I think their team is really solid.
So the key for the Longhorns today obviously is going to be stopping Kalani Brown in the paint and also finding ways to keep Lauren Cox and Christy Wallace from going off from beyond the arc. That will be very tough. Now, Daniel, obviously we've said this is a big game. How big does this game affect Texas's seeding going into the NCAA tournament in a couple weeks?
Well, if Texas wins this game, they still have a shot to get in that first seed for the NCAA tournament. If they lose this game, they'll have to fight for the rest of the season trying to get that second seed. That we all know how important first seed and second seed, that massive difference between the two. If Texas wants to get a good result out of the NCAA tournament, they're not just eyeing the Big 12 championship, they're eyeing for a national championship. And getting that number 1 seed from Baylor will be very essential for that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and not only that, but Ariel Atkins says this game has more significance than just seeding, and she also talked about that yesterday.
What do you feel like Texas has with Baylor?
I think it's a big rivalry, in my opinion. They're right down the road. I think our coach hit it on the head earlier in the season. We have a lot of kids that we both kind of recruit. I feel like 2 good programs, and so it's always fun to be in competition with a program such as Baylor. They're always the reigning champs of the Big 12. So.
Well,
not only is this Ariel Atkins' last game against Baylor, it's also Brooke McCarty's last game. She struggled in the last time that they played Baylor. She was 5 of 19 shooting, 16 points, but overall it just felt like there was a lack of hustle there. So it will be interesting to see how she can rebound. Texas will need a huge impact performance from her tonight if they want a chance to take down Baylor. Now, before we send it back to the studio, what are your predictions for tonight's game?
Well, I think Baylor coming in with a 17-game winning streak, undefeated in the Big 12 so far. I think they're going to do very well. Again, Joyner Holmes really new to that position, so Baylor will, I think, will take advantage of that. I think Baylor wins 77-71 at the Erwin Center today.
Wow, 77-71. I have to say, Texas wins. Let's go 75-70. Anyways, let's hope it's a good game. Now back to you, Henry, in the studio.
Thanks, boys. Coming up, we'll give you recaps from the Longhorns teams of golf, tennis, softball, and soccer. You do not want to miss out, so stay tuned right here to College Press Box. Welcome back to College Press Box. I'm your host, Henry Corwin. Joining me now is the lovely Madison Hager. Madison, thank you so much for being here. I hope you're doing well on this fine evening.
I'm doing great.
Good, good. And rumor has it that you have some recaps for us from the Longhorns this past week.
Yes, I do. So for women's golf, it didn't take Lake Travis standout golfer Caitlin Papp long to make her presence felt at the University of Texas. The true freshman won the Northrop Grumman Intercollegiate. Papp finished the event at 3 under par after rounds of 69, 71, 72. Papp defeated 5 of the nation's top 10 golfers. It marks her 3rd top 10 finish of her young career. Texas will continue its spring season at the Wildcat March 5th.
Scottie Scheffler competed in the Genesis Open this weekend. The Texas senior earned exemption into his 3rd PGA Tour event during the Genesis Open Collegiate Showcase. Scheffler won the event as an individual, defeating fellow teammates Doug Gim and Spencer Sussman, along with 3 other top collegiate players. Scheffler fired rounds of 73 and 76, missing the cut by just 4 shots. He'll rejoin his teammates back in Austin as Texas prepares for their 2nd tournament on the spring in 2 weeks.
For softball, Texas softball competed in the Puerto Vallarta College Challenge this past weekend. Texas started out by winning 2-0 against Rutgers on Thursday. The Longhorns fell short on their next 2 games against Ole Miss and Oregon, 2-8 and 0-8 respectively. The team finished out the weekend strong by beating Houston 7-3 on Saturday. In the final game, Janae Jefferson set a new Longhorn record for the longest hitting streak by hitting safely in 8 consecutive games. Texas softball's next game is on Wednesday against Washington here in Austin.
Texas women's softball had a successful weekend here in Austin. The team defeated South Florida on Friday 6-1 by winning the doubles point as well as 5 singles wins. On Saturday, the Longhorns upset number 6 Stanford, beating them 4-2. This was the first time Texas knocked off the Cardinal since 1995. This was also Texas's first win over a top 10 opponent since 2016. The women's tennis team's next appearance is on Sunday against Ohio State.
This week in Longhorn sports, Wednesday through Saturday, swimming and diving will be hosted here, the Big 12 Championships. On Wednesday, baseball will be playing Lamar, and men's basketball will be at Kansas State. Friday through Saturday, softball will be at the Texas Invitational, and on Saturday, men's basketball versus Oklahoma State.